Hey guys, today I'm going to demonstrate about Unified Sandbox in Fusion HCM and how to switch over from Classic Sandbox to Unified Sandbox. Before we get into actual discussion, I would like to give you a brief discussion about Sandbox first. Let's see what is Sandbox now. We use Sandbox to make application changes and test them without impacting other users in the environment. Wherever possible, make changes to the application in a sandbox rather than making direct changes in the mainline environment. Typically, we use sandbox for either of these purposes, test only and publish. In case of test only, we can make application changes using test only sandboxes, which you don't want to publish to the mainline code. In case of publish, once satisfied with application changes made in the test only sandbox, you can replicate these changes in a sandbox that you want to publish and then publish your changes to the mainline code. In addition to this, using sandbox, we can perform changes at various levels. We can perform custom cosmetic changes on various pages, and if you want, you can edit the text messages, and we can also perform the changes on structure level, and if you want, we can also perform at role level as well. Now we will see why you need sandboxes in real time. As you all aware, today's business landscape is quite dynamic. Companies are expected to respond quickly to address both customer and market needs. So, mul- multiple teams, multiple teams need to make application changes at the same time while sharing the same instance, but you may get conflicts between teams working that way. To avoid such conflicts, sandbox come in handy. So, what is the significance of unified sandbox and how many types of sandbox that we have in Fusion? Now, let's go ahead and see. There are two types of sandbox that we have in Fusion HCM: classic sandbox and unified sandbox. Prior to 19C version, we had been using classic sandbox. After 19C, from 19C onwards, unified sandbox was introduced by Oracle. So the main significance of unified sandbox is if you select, if you enable unified sandbox in Fusion application, it enable all the configuration tool in the same way using sandbox UI. So you get a consistent sandbox experience across the tool. Normally we go and select unified sandbox under configuration in the application. And Unified Sandbox also provides preview mode that shows you exactly how your application changes would appear in publish mode. Now let's go ahead and see what is classic sandbox in Fusion application and how it looks like. Then we will see how to switch over from classic sandbox to unified sandbox in Fusion SCM. So whatever you were seeing, this now I logged in as a SCM application admin. Typically, to access Sandbox, you should have SCM application admin role, or else if you should have at least application implementation consultant. This user has both roles now, so I got access to Sandbox section. So this is the section under this administration. You can see the tasks that are related to Sandbox. In order to access Sandbox, click on Edit Pages. Since we are in classic sandbox, it is asking us to activate sandbox. So just click on activate sandbox so that a new page will appear. This is classic sandbox page. Here you can create a sandbox, create your own name, and then set it as active so that you can enter into the classic sandbox. Prior to 19C version, everyone had been using this version only. But from 19C, Oracle was introduced unified sandbox, and everyone is recommended to use that one only. Now let's see how to switch over from classic sandbox to unified sandbox in Fusion HCM. So to enable unified sandbox from classical sandbox, if you want to use unified sandbox instead of classical sandbox, opt out of the unified sandbox feature. You can opt back in whenever you want also. So to opt out of unified sandbox, you have to follow certain steps. But before you opt out of this feature or opt back into it, make sure you totally understand what impact that would have. You must publish or delete any sandboxes that are open right now. Once you opt out, you can no longer see the published unified sandboxes. Similarly, once you opt back in, you can no longer see the published classic sandboxes. If you're using unified sandbox, you can't deploy your flex field to sandbox. If you're using unified sandboxes, you must deploy them directly into mainline code. That is a key thing that we need to keep in our mind whenever we are deploying flexibles in case if you are in unified sandbox. Now let's go and see how to switch over from classic sandbox to unified sandbox. As you see now, we are in classic sandbox. To switch over from classic sandbox to unified sandbox, click on navigator, go to my enterprise. Under my enterprise, select offerings. Once you click on offerings, whatever the offerings that are available in Fusion application, you can find all the offerings. This is the page which holds all the offerings that are available in Fusion application. Scroll down on this page, select workforce deployment. As you already know, workforce deployment provides the permissions or access to core HR global payroll, absence, and time and labor. So select the workforce deployment, click on opt-in feature in the right side. Once you click on this opt-in feature, a new page will appear. Opt-in page. This is called opt-in page. On the opt-in page, scroll down, go to the application extension. On the application extensions, click on features. So once you come to this page, if you look at here opt-in task, just click on unified. This is called unified sandbox. In order to enable unified sandbox, you have to click on opt-in task. Click on opt-in task, and then here it is clearly showing what we are going to do. Enabling the sandboxes feature changes in the application behavior. Read the document first and then click continue to enable this feature. So we already know the impact, we understood that. So I'm going to click on continue. Click on continue. Once you click on continue, you have enabled the unified sandbox feature. To continue, sign out and sign in back again. Click on done. Click on done and then sign out and sign in back. Once you sign in back, now you should able to see unified sandbox. Let's go ahead and see now. I signed out and I'm signing back now. So I sign in back. So if I go here, click on edit page. So once you sign in back, now there are two ways to see this unified sandbox. To to see the unified sandbox, go to click on navigator, go to configurations. Under configuration, now you should able to see independent sandbox through which you can create and publish the sandbox. And also, if you wanted to navigate to this page, you can. There is another way also to navigate to there. So just click on username, click on edit pages, click on activate a sandbox. The moment you click on activate a sandbox, automatically it will take you to the sandbox page, which is available under configuration. So this is the way you have to create this is the way you have to switch over from classic sandbox to the unified sandbox. In case after you switch over from classic sandbox to unified sandbox, if you don't want to use unified sandbox, if you want to switch out to classic sandbox, again you have to repeat the same steps. Go to the home page, click on enterprise, my enterprise, click on offerings. In case if you don't want to opt out unified sandbox and you want to use classic sandbox, make sure these are the steps that you have to follow again. Click on workforce deployment, go to opt-in feature tab. Once you click on opt-in feature tab, opt-in feature page will open. In the opt-in feature page, you have to go to the application extensions. On this, click on features pencil button. Once you click on features pencil button, you would get this page. On this page, now if you see here, unified sandbox is enabled. In case if you wanted to switch over from unified sandbox to classical sandbox, you have to click on this one, opt-in task, so that it will ask you disabling the unified sandbox feature, changes to the application behavior, read the document first, then click on continue and disable. Once you get this message, if you click on OK and done, this application will be switched from unified sandbox to classic sandbox. But before you opt out or before you switch from classic sandbox to unified sandbox or vice versa, you must do two things. In case if you have any open sandboxes in either in classic sandbox or in unified sandbox, those must be either deleted or published. Then only you can switch over from one sandbox to another sandbox. Make sure you have to follow this one. This is the way that we can switch over from one sandbox to another sandbox. So now we have seen how to create a sandbox. Now let's go ahead and see how to create unified sandbox. In order to create a unified sandbox, go to configuration, click on sandbox. As I mentioned, once you are in unified sandbox, it enable all the configuration tools in the same way using sandbox here. So if you look at here, it provides a provision to the users when they're creating any sandbox, they would get a provision to select all the layers, whatever they want to. If they want to perform some customization on page, then they can select page composure. If they want to perform some customization on structure, they have to select structure. If you want to change the logo or appearance of the page, then we have to select this appearance. If you want to use HCM Design Studio and you want to write some validations and rules on pages, then we use HCM Design Studio. If you want to change the text codes on page, then we use user text. So if you want to select all of them together, that also can be done. Now for me, let's assume that I have to perform on changes on different pages. As per my requirement, I'm selecting Page Composer, User Interface Test, HCM Design Studio, Structure and Appearance. Because I would like to, I'm not sure where I am going to perform the changes. For for time being, I have selected these four options. Out of these options, wherever I want to go, I can, wherever I want to go and perform the personalization, I can simply go ahead and perform. In case if you missed out to select the option over here, once you enter into Sandbox, there again you would get an opportunity to select whatever the layer that you want to select. So this is how you have to select the layer. And in case if you want to select only page composer, because you are sure that you are going to perform customization on only pages, not in any other area, then you can select page composer alone. You don't need to select rest areas. If you want, you can select. In case if you select page composer here, and once you enter into Sandbox, if you would like to use other areas also like appearance and structure, there you would get a provision to select this independently again in the Sandbox itself. That is the provision that is provided by Oracle using unified Sandbox. So I select the layers and then I click on create Sandbox. So once you click on create Sandbox, automatically a unified Sandbox will be created. So this is a place where you have to specify your sandbox name. I'm specifying unified sandbox, unified sandbox test. So this is the page where you have to provide your sandbox name. I'm giving my sandbox name as unified sandbox test. And then once you provide the name, this is mandatory field. So once you provide the name, you have to click on create and enter so that you will go, it will take you to the sandbox page and you will be entered into sandbox. If you want to select this sandbox to be only visible to a particular role or particular users, this is the place where you have to select. By default, it select site level. If you want to select based on role code or based on country, that's the place where you can go ahead and select it. So this is how we can create the sandbox. Once the sandbox is created and once you enter into sandbox, now if you want to perform some customization on page, then go to the respective page where you want to perform the customization. Like, I wanted to perform some customization under my client groups. So I go to the my client groups, search for a person, go to person management. I'm looking for some person number here. Once you go to the person management, search for any person. I'm searching person name as Raja. So I'm going to employment page of Raja. On employment page, let's assume that I want to perform some changes. I want to change some field names over here. Okay, once I go there, you now this is the time you have to select your layer and which layer that you are going to perform transactions now. Now I want to perform transaction on this page, so I'm going to select page composer. If you are going to use HCM Design Studio, or if you're going to use structure level configuration, or if you're going to perform any uh, appearance change, then we select appearance here. Now I'm going to make changes on the application or on this page, so I'm going to select page composer. Click on page composer. As soon as click on as soon as you click on page composer, you would get settings that are related to page composer. Okay, so once you are in page composer page, settings. Now what you can do is simply go here, select structure, click on left. If you want to keep it in the bottom also, you can keep it. For clarity, I kept the settings features in the left side. Now my requirement is I wanted to rename this organization field as a department, and I want to make it as not mandatory. How to do that? Let's see. Just click on organization so that you would get edit button here. Once you click on organization, so the organization field will be selected in the settings. These are called sandbox settings. So in the sandbox settings, so if you see here, whatever the whatever the page that we selected, automatically the respective page settings will be shown up here. So now I want to rename this organization field as department. If you want to do the same, just click on this button, select the page panel label and message, click on edit. So once you click on right side, you would get this page. In this page, I don't want to, I want to make this field as non-mandatory, so I'm unchecking this one, and I want to rename this as department instead of organization. So I'm just renaming it. Okay, and then just click on apply, click on OK. Once you do this, if you see here, now it was renamed as department instead of organization, and earlier we had seen here there is a star mark. Now the star mark is removed, which means it's become non-mandatory. And if you want to hide this reporting establishment, just click on this reporting establishment field. Once you click on report establishment field, automatically the settings of respective settings of this field will be shown up here. Just right click on this one and then hide this component so that this will be hidden. In similar way, you can do whatever the customization that you want to do. It doesn't matter which page and which page do you want to do. In case if you want to hide this section, if you want to hide this section completely, you are not using any more this section. Let's assume that. How to do this? How can we hide this section completely? To do this, just click on this one, click on edit. So right click on this, simply hide it. Automatically the section would be hidden. That's how we do the personalizations using page composer. So once you are done with your personalization, whatever the changes that you want to make on this page or any page, once you are done with this, just click on close. Now there are two important things that you have to note down here. So if you don't publish this sandbox, and if you are entered into this sandbox now, then whatever the changes that you made, those are applicable and visible to you only, not for any other user. If I log in as some other user, I cannot see these changes unless I entered into this sandbox again. So whatever the steps that we followed, this whatever we are doing, this is called test only case. As I mentioned in the starting, if you select test only, you can make application changes using test only sandboxes which you don't want to publish to the main end code. Now this is called test only. In case if you want to make whatever the changes that you made in the application. If you want to make them effective for all the people, then this sandbox must be published. If you don't publish this sandbox, then whatever the changes that you applied over here, those will be available within the sandbox. If you move out from the sandbox and log in back, then you are not able to see whatever the changes that you applied. If you wanted to see whatever the changes that you applied, and if you want those changes to be effective for all the users, then this sandbox must be published. In order to publish sandbox, click on this page, click on publish here. Once you click on publish, automatically this sandbox will be published. Click on OK, so that whatever the changes that you have applied, those changes are effective for all the users. See here, these are the two these are the two areas that has been customized by you. That's what it means. And if you want to migrate these changes from one instance to another instance, you can download them for your reference also. And then you can import these downloaded files into new instance. Or else, in case if you want to leave the sandbox, this is a place you can click on leave sandbox, so that you will move out from this sandbox, and whatever the changes that you applied, those will not be effective for anyone, and in for you also they are not visible. If you want to publish this sandbox, just click on this publish. So you are going to publish this sandbox, and after it's done, you can't make further changes to this sandbox. Do you want to continue? Just click on continue publish. Once you publish it, your sandbox will be published. If you want to see your sandbox, you can go to publish it sandbox and then see it. See, this is the sandbox that has been published by you. That's fine. Now let's go ahead and see whatever the changes that we have applied on this page, whether they are effective or not. Since the sandbox is published, they must have been effective for all the users. Just click on Raja, click on search, go to Raja P. Not only Raja, you can select any person, go to the manage employment page. That's a place where we had applied changes. See here, if you look at here, earlier this field name was organization and we renamed it as department, and earlier it was mandatory field, now we made it as non-mandatory. That's the one thing that we had done. And also below we had some other section here, we made that section as invisible. We had one more section here, we made it invisible. This is how we can perform the customization using unified sandbox. Hope you enjoyed this. If you like this session, please subscribe my channel and share it. Thank you guys.